And welcome back. This is the concluding part 3 of this little mini-series about easy workshop improvements, and this one's going to be all about lights and lighting, which is why my lights are actually in shot now. Many of us don't think too much about lights and lighting unless we're actually starting a complete new workshop build. We often just sort of take the lights that we inherit with that whichever workspace we happen to have. I did exactly that thing when I moved in here. I had some really horrible old janky fluorescent lights hanging down off chains, and they were pretty awful, pretty flickery and pretty horrible colour as well. I changed them up for these flat panel LED lights about 3 years ago. I did a separate video on that. You might want to take a look at that up there, and they've lasted really well. They do have a finite lifespan. They are on a lot, and some of them did give up the ghost partway through the 3 years or so that I've had them here. So I've changed a couple of them along the way, and I decided that as part of the workshop improvements, I'll just do a clean sweep and change them all this time around. They do vary a little bit in price. I paid about £14 for each of these. I bought 10 or 15 of them at the time to have a few spares in stock as well. And they're just really nice, straightforward, simple panels. They're not a fancy photographic panel. They're just the sort of thing you'd find in an office somewhere. If you've got space for them, I do recommend these ones. They put out a lot of light, around 4,000 lumens to each panel, and they're very easy to fit. Each one comes with a little sort of LED driver, a little bit like a transformer. If you don't want to go to the trouble of messing about with drivers, then you can get a simple replacement batten type lamp like this one. This one just plugs in. I've got this temporarily hooked into a little connector just to show you. This one hooks into directly to the mains and puts out plenty of light, and it is a direct replacement for something like an LED, something like a fluorescent tube. The LED panel like this one is daylight balanced, and it puts out about twice as much light as this LED batten, also daylight balanced. So have a think about how many you can fit in and where they might go. You might be better off having more of the batten fittings than fewer of the 600mm square panels. What I'm going to do with these though, again, as I said, the wooden frames I put in about 3 years ago, and they're absolutely fine. I've given them a quick coat of paint so they sort of blend into the ceiling a bit more. I had some simple diffusers taped up around the edges, but I want something a little bit more permanent, a little bit smarter looking. So in this video, for the rest of the video, I'm going to be making some little wooden frames. I've got some 1 by 3/4 planed stock. Comes out with a finished size of about 21 by 15mm. I'm just going to make a simple little wooden frame to go around these frames, stretch some diffuser fabric over it, and then fit them on with some magnetic tape. So let's get on with that, and I'll talk you through it as I go. So with a strip wood bundled into a stack of sticks, I can trim one end square and then cut them to length, first the long side and then the short. So a little bit of slightly finicky setting up. I can cut the shoulder nice and cleanly with a plunge saw and trench cut most of the waste away. And then just break that out nice and easily. Then I've got the router bench set up with a super simple little jig. Usual thing, a little sled with a bit of sandpaper to hold everything together. Then I can run that up against the fence to get the half laps done, and they come together really very well. Very pleased with that. So a bit of epoxy in there, a couple of pins, and that can set. But before we do that, I need to get the rest of them cut. Incidentally, whenever I'm making either trenching cuts like this or lots of small repetitive cuts, instead of sort of, you might have seen me move the rail around a lot. That's because I want to show the process of what's going on here. When I'm doing it for myself, what I'll typically do is make the cut, and if you left it there and tried to move the workpiece, the weight of the saw's sort of dragging it down. What I tend to do is just move the saw back to the end of the rail. That usually gives enough leeway in the rail. It makes it bow very slightly, that you can then move the workpiece along a bit and make your second cut, or take that piece out and move the workpiece in if you're making lots of narrow cuts. That's just one of those little things that's really handy to have about the standard MFT. It's one of the benefits of the MFT with a hinged rail and the support here over something like rail dogs in an MFT style top. Anyway, I need to get on with the rest of these, and that's what I'm going to be doing. I don't have a rebate bit big enough to do the half lap in one hit, so I'm using a straight bit and making 2 passes, with the first pass set back from the fence to cover the end of the half lap, and the second pass hard up against the fence to clean up the shoulder. So just mixing up a little squeeze of fast grab, fast set epoxy. The half lap's gone really nicely. Very happy with those. Get this one put together with some quick adhesive so that I can just offer it up, make sure I've got the right size. It should be fine, of course it should. That's the bonus of doing a half lap joint, is that that if you're making a frame for something, it's exactly the same size as the something that you're making it for. I'm just going to kind of glue this together and put a couple of pins in it while it sets, just to keep it together really. And I'm using my little electric 21 gauge pinner, because that's the only one I've got 15mm pins for, and even those look a little bit long, to be honest, so I may have to do a little bit of corrective sanding. Yeah. With all the frames set, I'm gluing in a mid-rail with some rapid set epoxy just to add a little extra stability, and I'm holding everything together with tape while the glue goes off. So these frames are all looking pretty good. I'd say only lightweight, but then they're only going to hold a piece of fabric and some tape. I'm going to attach the diffuser material on with double-sided tape. Whenever I want a strong bond, there's loads of double-sided tape around, but for a really strong bond I recommend using 3M 9088. I'll put a link in the video description down below. It is more expensive than your typical bargain basement double-sided tape, but this stuff gives an incredibly strong bond on all manner of different materials. So that's what I'm going to be using with this. I do actually have some more coming, because I think I'm just about going to have to go around most of them. But I'm going to get on with putting that on now, and then we'll talk about stretching the diffuser out and getting them attached as well. So when it comes to laying this out and getting a nice flat as possible, smooth cover, it's a bit like going back to my old art school days, stretching a canvas. If you've ever done that for painting on, what you've got to do, you start in the middle and you work your way out to the corners. A lot of people start at the corners and wonder why it goes all baggy in the centre. This is the trick. So I've got a nice big board which is reasonably flat laid out. Nice and tight in the centre. And about the centre of this one. And this one. and you just work your way out gradually. I'm just going to press it down with a seam roller, a wallpaper seam roller. Just got a little bit of pressure on there. We'll do it again from the other side as well. And around and press that home. Nice and firm. So that's our diffusers all done and finished. You might be looking at these and say, why are you messing about, why are you fanning about with, fabric diffusers? Why not just put a sheet of translucent plastic or something over there? That's a perfectly valid question. And the reason I'm not doing that is because I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. I mentioned earlier on about in the sound video, if you saw that part of this series, about how things you can do to stop your own sound getting out, stop other people's sound getting in. And one of the things you can do to avoid sound bouncing around, reverberating within a space, is to have, soft furnishings, basically curtains, wall coverings, thick carpets, rugs. Any of the hard, shiny surfaces need to be covered up with something that's absorbent. All the kind of things, basically, that are terrible in a workshop. Basically, they would all turn into a dust magnet. So there's not a huge amount you can do, but by having a fabric covering instead of a hard reflective covering over the lights, it's just going to help dampen things down a little bit, and it's just going to make it a slightly more comfortable place to be. I hope. I don't think it's going to make that much difference, to be perfectly honest, but I think it'll help a little bit. And lots of little things become a bigger helpful thing. I said before, anyway, the panels are all done. I said before I'm going to stick these up with a magnetic tape. This is a big roll of magnetic tape. I bought this from a company called First For Magnets. You can get magnetic tape from lots of different places. These guys seem particularly good value. This is what they recommended for panels of this sort of weight, so we'll see if it works. I'm trying to work out a discount code with them at the moment, but I'll put a link to what I bought down below anyway. We'll see how it goes. This is 19mm thick, and it comes with a double-sided sticky tape. This is what they call a self-mating tape. So with some of the tapes, some of the magnetic tapes you need an A side and a B side. This is just magnetic. It sticks to metal, or it sticks to itself. One of the consequences of that is, of course, because you're not getting two sides to it, you need twice as much as you think. So I bought a big roll, and then I realised it wasn't quite enough, so I've got a couple of small rolls that have just arrived. Anyway, I'm going to stick this on. I'm going to get half of this, one layer of tape on the panel and one layer of tape on the frame, and then we'll see if it sticks. Moment of truth. Yeah, then we can call that a success. Another 4 big ones to do. So I am pretty happy with how they have worked out overall. Our diffusers are looking great. They're doing exactly what they need to. They are helping with the sound, even though you may not be able to tell because it's microphones and all that. One thing I did find with the magnetic tape, and I should have thought of this beforehand, of course, is that it does need absolute flat contact for it to get the most adhesion. And of course, because the sealing is a bit sort of twisty and turny, even though the diffuser frames themselves were equally twisty and turny, on some of them it took a few turns to get it to mate up happily. And what I ended up doing was I just put magnetic tape over the long sides rather than the short sides, and that made life much easier. I was a little bit concerned. I did think about doing that initially, but I was worried about light leakage, but it's a non-issue basically. So yeah, that's what I do in future, or maybe use just little stud magnets into metal, or magnet to magnet, something like that anyway. But it's working out really well, and this sort of concludes this little mini-series about workshop environment improvement. We've done a few of these, and I felt the workshop makeover was dragging a little bit, so I thought I'd get these ones out all in one hit. The next one will probably be the router bench remake, and that's probably going to be a couple of weeks away, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. But I'll call this one done. Thank you, as always, for taking a look, and thank you to my YouTube members and Patreon supporters who've lived through a little bit of this in behind the scenes and over the shoulder type stuff over the last week, and will probably do so in the coming week as well. But that's it for this one. Thanks ever so much for taking a look, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, take care.